Thank you, Carol. Well, again, welcome. And this is a good day to be here. This is an exciting day. We're finishing our series called Paul's Prison Party Playlist, which sounded easy to say when we wrote it down, but when you're up here having to say it, there are more challenges to it. If you were here last Sunday, Murray Hack came and preached. And by the way, I spoke with Murray later on in the week, and he talked about how warmly welcomed he was. And thank you for that. Murray does such important work in North Central and also in some reserves. And so I'm just very thankful for how he was received. I was with my daughter on a daddy-daughter trip to Calgary. And on the way to Calgary, we drove out there. I had picked a playlist. My daughter's in here somewhere. Where did she go? There she is. I had picked a playlist. And the playlist, at some point, played the songs that we were going to hear when we went to this musical. A musical called Six. It's about King Henry's 6 wives. And it didn't end well for the vast majority of them, and so we've taken that and we've turned it into a rock and hip-hop musical. And so we're driving out there, and at the right time I hit play on that playlist, and it comes out through the speakers. It is extra loud. I had to set cruise control or I would have sped. My daughter sang every lyric. I didn't know the lyrics. I was listening sort of for the first time through it, but I was listening to her sing, and I was driving, and it was fun, and it was a party, and what a good time we had. In the back of my mind, that's the playlist that's playing, but in the back of my mind, there is a little tension because I do not yet have the tickets. Now, I had purchased the tickets way back in January, but I didn't have the tickets. I'm sure it won't be a problem. And so we drove out to Calgary. My parents live in Calgary, so we're at their house. And we got there and we had supper and eventually we went to bed. The next morning we got up and I got to do something that I really like doing. And you guys know that I'm a car guy. My dad's a car guy and he's got a fancy, useless car, and so we were able to play with that for a while and do those kind of things. And the playlist going on my head is all my favorite music, just the best stuff, and it's great. And that's the playlist, and there's a lot of joy, but in that joy, the tension grows just a little bit. You ever had tension in the back of your head? It hasn't adjusted the playlist yet, but it's there. I am supposed to receive these tickets by email. I checked my email. Well, first of all, my phone vibrates every email I get. And it didn't vibrate, and I checked it any number of times. Called my wife, said, did I buy these on your computer somehow? Like, went to your email, she checks, no, not there. Okay, well, we have the receipt. We have the general area where we're supposed to be sitting in the auditorium. I'm sure it will work out. And so, all right, so midnight, that's when it's the next day. I'm going to check at midnight. So I'm downstairs in the basement where the bedroom is down there, and I wait up till midnight, check the email, no tickets. The next morning, I get up. The playlist has changed a little. It's a little bit more grunge. Those of you who grew up in the 90s, you know what I'm saying. It's a little, it's got an edge to it. It's still a good day. It's a real good day. But there's a bit of an edge to it. And I check my email so many times. It's never there. So I call the ticket master and I say, hey, what's the story? And they say to me, we need to change your password. And I said, okay. They said, pick a different password. So I did. No tickets. And they say, well, we can see that you've purchased the tickets. We just don't know where the tickets are. And I said, well, send them again. And they said, we can't because the tickets are a thing. And it's not here. And I said, well, they're not a thing because I don't have them. Who has them? We don't know. Well, send them again. We can't. Okay, what do we do here? And they said, 20 minutes, we're going to send you an email. check your email. So I waited. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, no email. The playlist is being adjusted accordingly. It's a little bit more tension-driven. I call them back. It's always a new person every time. And they say, okay, what we need to do is we need to change your password. And I said, we just did, okay, let's change the password. And so we changed the password again. No tickets. We can see all the evidence of that you should have tickets, but you have no tickets. I know that. Send me the tickets. We can't. We have to find them. Okay, get after that. I bet you I know full well I called them 5 times that day. The last time I called them, I was dressed up for the show. My daughter was dressed up for the show. I had called them and was put on hold. I literally had one shoe on, and then they came on and said, can we help you? And I said, yes, my name is Peter. This is my phone number. These are answers to all of your questions. I need my tickets. And they said, we need you to change your password. Okay, the playlist changed fully at that point. And now this is an anxious playlist. This is, I don't even know what, this is like Gregorian chant. Like this is, whoo. And I said to them, guys, do you understand? The show begins at 2 o'clock. I am talking to you at 1 o'clock. I have to drive completely across Calgary and get into an event, and I don't have tickets. Oh, yes, sir, we understand that. Okay, do you understand? I am getting into my truck right now and driving. Yes, we understand that. Okay, I'm driving along. My daughter's beside me, and she's a sweetheart. She starts saying stuff like, it's okay if we don't go to the show. And I'm like, we're going to the show. Let me tell you. I'll tell you how this one's going to end. Me in jail. But anyway, that's not, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. That's a joke. Don't take that seriously. Eventually, they say, we need you to pull over and check your email. I pull over. They say, we need to change your password. I said, I do not have time for this any longer. I am driving over to the event. There needs to be an email in my inbox by the time I get to the event. And I hang up. And we drive over. I am trying to be cherub. I am trying to be pleasant and be fun. But I am now fully worried. There's a little bit of fire, you know. I don't mean a lot. A little bit. I'm hoping my daughter doesn't know, but she's pretty smart. I think she found out. We drive over there, we park, we literally run into the place, and there is the box office. I check my email. There is no email. I go over to the box office. There are many people at the box office, and they are all saying the same thing. We do not have the tickets that we paid for. We have the receipts. We have all this stuff. Behind the counter is a girl. She's probably 16 years old. There is a guy, he's probably 18 years old, and there is the manager. And I know there is nothing in the world they can do. This is not their fault. I also know that they are standing between me and the door that I'm about to walk through. So I get up to the front and I say, I don't have tickets. And they say, we need to change your password. And I said, I am not interested in changing my password, and I am not interested in calling Ticketmaster. Can you please check to see if my name is on your list? And they check, and they're doing their best. Genuinely, sincerely, they're doing their best. And we get to the place, and I look at the 16-year-old girl's face, and I know what's coming. And she says, I am so sorry, sir. I have no record of you at all. As she says this, we hear, we're closing the doors through the walkie-talkies. And I looked at her and I said, what do I have to do to get in through those doors? And she said, sir, I have to sell you new tickets. And I said, sell me new tickets. Now, it was less than a tank of gas. All the pickup truck people here, less than a tank of gas. So those of you that drive Teslas, gas is the stuff you pour in, and it costs money. But for the rest of us, it wasn't the point. And so she says, look at your phone. You're going to receive a text. Blink, blink, 2 tickets. We go up to there's a woman standing there, and she's actually saying to us, run, we got to close the door. And so we run up there, and she zaps the 2 tickets, and we go in, and we turn a corner, and there's another woman and another door, and she says, you got to run. We have to close the doors. Zap the tickets again. Boom, we're in. And this is going to sound like an exaggeration, and it isn't. We go to our seats. We sit down. The foam has not fully compressed. Lights come on. And we watched this tremendous musical, and we laughed, and we cheered, and we shouted, probably even louder than we would have if it hadn't been all of that tension. We saw the show. It was great. It was tremendous. There is a whole bunch of you in here that's going to wonder what we have done with Ticketmasters. You're going to continue to wonder. Have you ever had tension in your life? Raise your hand if you have never had tension in your life. Raise your hand if you've never felt the back of your ears get just a wee bit pink. Do you know what I mean? I know what I mean. You've never sat there and thought, ooh, I better think hard before I speak. Some of you should write that down. I'm going to write that down. I should think hard before I speak. You've had that. Have you ever had it and then someone comes to you and says, just don't worry about it? Oh, you are about to misbehave. When someone says that to you, man, it's about all you can do. Somehow those words hit our ears and it sounds disingenuous. It sounds like you're not taking what I am going through in my life seriously. For some of us, there are some very serious things going on. We have loved ones in hospital or are sick. We have people in this room right now who they're in a cast. They've recently hurt themselves, and saying to someone, don't worry about it. You don't understand. I'm in pain. At the very least, this disrupts my day. This disrupts my week. Some of you have had children with croup, and you haven't slept. I'm looking at a whole bunch of people here with little kids, and you know how that is. My kids are bigger now, and they don't get up. Sort of the same problem on the other side of the coin. Some of you have had financial challenges to where genuinely and in all earnesty you didn't know if you would eat, and you didn't know if you could keep where you were living. There are many people in this room that struggle with anxiety to the point that they are on medication. And that's one of those things that we there's sort of a shame built around it. And more than anything, I hope those days are past. I hope that we can say, no, mental health is a thing. We can care for it well, or we can care for it badly, and the evidence will be clear as to what we have done. And if you're a person that says mental health is not a thing, I just know you're wrong, and you need to lay that down. The professionals disagree with you. The people in my own family disagree with you. I disagree with you. It's a thing. And there are many people in this room that struggle with it, who wake up in the middle of the night with so much anxiety that they're dripping with sweat and they can't even tell you why. And if you look at them and say, don't worry about it, they will say to you, that's impossible. I don't even necessarily know what it is that I'm not supposed to worry about. Tension happens. We've been going through the book of Philippians. We're at the end. And Philippians is a book that is known as the joy book. But there's something interesting that happens with Philippians, particularly Philippians 4, where we will read a particular part of it, and it sounds good, but it sounds so far from our reality that we'll sort of fold the book shut and put it away and say, clearly this is not applicable to me. And I want to suggest to you today that we've been reading it wrong. And now we're going to try to read it with a little bit more clarity, and I want to invite you to come with me. Now, Philippians 4 starts, this is a hilarious thing. There's elements to this, I could spend a whole sermon on this, but Paul is talking to two women who he names, and these women they're at odds with each other at the church. We don't know what they're at odds over, but something's not going well. And he names these two women, and he says, you need to work this out. And if you need help working this out, he names a third person and says, get together with this person. I want you to understand the scope of this. Paul, remember at the beginning of this whole series, we talked about how Paul was a Pharisee and Paul did the things the way it was supposed to be done, and he was right about everything that he did, and he was the judge for those that did things differently, Christ followers. Well, one of the things that happened was that women had no names. Their husbands had names, but women had no names. And then they had names, but they just were not recorded. They were owned by their husbands. But when Jesus came, he changed everything, including Paul. And so now Paul is pointing out these women, not their husbands, not their family name, and saying, hey, these two women, you need to get right with each other. And after we have just had communion, I think it is particularly poignant to point that out. Get right with each other, but also the adding importance to a people group who to that point had not had any. If you're a woman in here, this should bring you such hope. And if you're a man in here, this should give you your marching orders. How do we treat women? It's important. This is what Paul did. He changed what he thought and he embraced a new way. He embraced the way that Jesus wanted. And then it's also funny to me that these women and their fight has been recorded for all time. And now, however many years later, in Saskatchewan, Regina, there's a pastor preaching about it. So get your stuff right, or it might get written down. Just saying. And then in verse 4, we find this. And here is where, if I'm not careful, I'll lose at least half of you. And you'll get frustrated. Please stick with me. It says this, verse 4. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate in all that you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Thanks for coming to church, everyone. We'll see you next week. You've heard that sermon, haven't you? Just don't worry. But for some people in this room, there is plenty of stuff to worry about. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all that He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. All right, I need to point out a few things here. Number one, some of you live a life where you feel like the deck is stacked against you. Spencer, where are you, Spencer? We won that one. Parents versus youth, I'm telling you. If you were there. Some of you live a life. You feel like the deck is stacked against you. You were born into the wrong family. You didn't have there was the rich family over there. They had everything. You had nothing. You've had to work hard to get half as far as everyone else. People were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Someone is smarter than you. Someone is prettier than you. Someone is more gifted. Someone who is less gifted gets put up above you. And yet we hear this, don't worry about it. You think you don't understand how deep the offense is. Instead, pray about everything. Here's what I want to say. We've put the emphasis on the wrong part of the sentence. I want to switch it. Here's what this means. Pray about everything. And don't worry about anything. Let me say it again. Pray about everything. That's your order. And then don't worry about it. We're going to keep digging into this. Paul has an ability that we're going to try to dissect. But I need to give you the context. When Paul writes this, he's number one, in prison. Number two, not sure how this is going to pan out. Number three, there's a church he longs to be with this church, and he isn't with the church. And number four, all he can do is write a letter. Paul, in his own story, what we have read so far in this series, Paul is already worried. Let me read this to you. Philippians 2, that was on our second service in this series. It says this, starting in verse 19. The Lord is willing, if the Lord is willing, I hope to send Timothy to you soon for a visit. Then he can cheer me up by telling me how you are getting along. Paul is not a cheery fellow. Paul is down in the dumps. Paul is not feeling happy. I have no one else like Timothy who genuinely cares about your welfare. All others care only for themselves and not for what matters to Jesus Christ. Well, this sounds like a disappointing series of realities for him. It sounds like something that you might be depressed about. But you know how Timothy has proven himself like a son with his father. He has served with me in preaching the good news. I hope to send him to you just as soon as I find out what is going to happen to me here. That's alone. He doesn't know the future. The future could be really bad. And I have confidence from the Lord that I myself will be coming to see you soon. There's confidence, but it is on the back of worry. In his own letter in this book sent to his best friends. Verse 25, meanwhile, I thought I should send, and I've been working on this name for a while, Epaphroditus, you can correct me later, back to you. He is a true brother, a co-worker, and a fellow soldier, and he was your messenger to help me in my need. He had a need. Someone came to help him in a need. I am sending him because he has been longing to see you. This is the second place where we hear about longing. He was very distressed that you heard he was ill. And he certainly was ill. In fact, he almost died. There was need. I bet you he was worried about dying. I'll bet you he didn't want to die. I bet you he was praying, God, don't let me die. But God had mercy on him and also on me, so that I would not have one sorrow after another. This is the same letter. This is just paragraphs before. This is why reading the Bible in big chunks is so important, because on the one hand we have don't worry about it, but just in the breath before he said, these are the things I'm worried about. So what does this mean? Well, it means that there's something more going on here. And it means that maybe us saying, don't worry about it, and if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, just doesn't quite go deep enough. When I was a kid, right up until my grandfather died, I just loved talking to him and hearing his stories, and very often they went to World War II. He was a soldier in World War II. And when I was a kid, he had sanitized those stories so that they were good for a kid's ear. And then when I got older and when he got older, that sanitation fell off, and some of those stories got to be pretty grim. And I would hear the stories over and over again, and then suddenly I would start to hear the real story. And there was this one time where I asked him a question, and he gave me an answer. And when I first heard the answer, I thought I understood it. And then as time went on, I thought, oh, I think he meant something different. I said to him, Grandpa, were you ever scared? And my grandpa, he had a way with words. He said, only once. Oh, good. You only get scared once. Boom! Now you're done being scared. That's not what he meant. He was only scared once. It took 4 years. In fact, it took longer than that because it takes a while to shake it. Do you know what I mean? What if we had said to him, don't worry about it? You don't quite know what's going on here, do you? Back to Philippians chapter 4. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you have learned and received from me. Everything that you have heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. Paul is an anxiety-filled, fear-filled, normal human being like me and perhaps like you. Paul wakes up in the middle of the night, bathed in sweat, unable to go back to sleep because his brain woke him up and he's stressed. Paul has loved ones, and those loved ones are doing things that Paul doesn't want them to do. Does that resonate with you? Paul doesn't necessarily know where his next meal is coming from. Paul doesn't know where he's going to sleep. Paul has been beaten. Paul has been shipwrecked. Paul has been put in prison. By the end of his life, Paul's testimony is pretty wild. There is anxiety all over the place. But Paul understands something that if we understand this, it will shape this book, and it will stop you from closing the book and putting it on a shelf and saying, this book is not for me. This is what Paul understands. Paul's contentment was not tied to success. It was not tied to comfort. It was not tied to those things. It was not tied to his circumstance. Rather, it was tied to Christ alone. Christ alone. There's this old song. It's really old. I went and found out that it existed in the 1600s in a particular form. The language has changed. Some of you will know this song, but it says this: turn your eyes on Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face. Then the things of this earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Turn your face to Jesus. Take all of your worries and say, these are my worries. Not, don't worry about it, but instead, God, these are too heavy for me. I need to give them to you. I am exhausted. I can't sleep. I am broken. I am so disheartened, I can't breathe. The plan didn't pan out. It's not my fault. The deck is stacked against me. The goalpost has moved. I am alone. I am broken. And I'm being squashed by this. That's Paul's reality. This whole book is called the Book of Joy. The only way this works is if Paul takes all of the things that make him not joyful and gives those to God, and instead looks at God in his face and says, oh, it's you. The rest of this I am not worried about because of you. I'm going to invite the worship team to come to the front. I'm going to tell you this last story. When I was a little boy, we drove to Ontario. I was too young to do any of the driving. We left Regina on, I think it was December 23rd, and drove nonstop. Well, we drove very long days to get to Hamilton, where my grandparents lived, for Christmas. I remember two things about that trip. I remember sitting in a car and just the general discomfort of sitting in a car for days. And I also remember a tremendous, tremendous snowstorm. And I remember looking up my mom, who was driving. And I could see the back of my mom's head, and I could see out the windshield. And you know when the snow is coming straight at the windshield and it's mesmerizing? But I knew my mom had it. I knew my mom would keep me safe. Probably I was more confident than she was. In fact, she may have been right and I may have been incorrect, but I sure felt comfortable, and so I went to sleep. the full confidence that we were going to get to where we were going safely. That serves as an image to me of how it works with God. Except the difference is, whereas I was wrong with my mom, we very probably could have slid into the ditch or something like that. That doesn't happen with God. He gathers up all of our concerns. And he says, I've got this. You see, Paul had a lot of playlists. He had a lot of different playlists. Some of them were joyful. Some of them were angry. Some of them were anxiety-driven. Some of them were loss. Oh, you better believe there was loss. They were all his. But he also has God. And God looks at the playlists and says, I made those playlists. All of that music that represents how you feel and what you think and your anxieties, those are mine. Give that to me. I will handle that. And you don't need to worry. Not in a flippant way, but in a way that says, God has this. And out of that, the things of this earth grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.
Church, the message that I heard come across very clearly today is this: just keep praying. In the midst of the anxiety, in the midst of the pain and the suffering, just keep praying. Because it's when we center our mind, when we center our hearts on who Jesus is and what he has done for us, that we get this light in the middle of it. You know, sometimes it's wonderful. Sometimes Jesus says, the anxiety is gone for you. Sometimes he says, you are healed here and now. But sometimes he says, hold on to me a little bit longer in the middle of this. I have something to show you. I have something to teach you. May he be your anchor in the middle of that when you're going through that. And just keep praying. The reason we have people come up to the front to pray each and every week is because we're called to do that. We're called to pray. We're called to lead people to Jesus. We're called to depend on Jesus to heal. And there are times up here that people are healed. There's times that they're not. But we know and trust Jesus that as he guides and as he leads us, healing will come. And for some, that may not be till glory. But that doesn't mean he isn't there in the midst of the anxiety and the pain and the suffering. So in light of that, I encourage you to come up to the front today, receive prayer for whatever may be going on, because we love praying, because that's what we're called to do. Thanks for being here, everybody. We hope your week is great, and we hope you'll pray for us, pastors in our district, as we go to district conference for this week. Thank you so much.